All right. Well, good morning and welcome to the React Learning Series. My name is Vanessa Brewer. I am the Regional Interagency Council Program Administrator, and I work for the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities. I want to thank you for joining us today. Today's React Learning Series session focuses on legislative priorities for youth, including those from previous sessions and the upcoming session. So our speakers are Shannon Moody. She's the Chief Policy and Strategy Officer with Kentucky Youth Advocates. We also have Tatum Health here with us today. She's the peer coach with Kentucky Youth Advocates. So before I turn it over to Shannon and Tatum, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. So if you haven't already, please mute your mics. We do have time carved out at the end for Q&A. Also, this workshop will be recorded and posted on the React's YouTube channel, and we'll put that link in the chat box later on during the session. A session evaluation link will also be posted in the chat box, so I'll put that in there later in the session. And as always, if you need a certificate of attendance, those are available by request, so please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat box too. And before we leave today, I'll also put the React Learning Series flyer for September through December sessions in the chat box. That was recently released, and so those sessions are set and ready to go. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Shannon and Tatum and let them introduce themselves.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. I'm Shannon Moody with Kentucky Youth Advocates. As Vanessa said, I'm our Chief of Policy and Strategy. I'll talk a little bit about what KYA is and what we do before we jump into the topic, but I'll also let Tatum go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, thank you, Shannon. Like Vanessa said, I'm the peer coach for our Jefferson County Peer Network here in Louisville, which is just an advocacy group for foster alumni to get connected to each other and to resources within the community.
All right, hopefully you can see my screen. Does everything look okay? Okay, beautiful. All right, so Kentucky Youth Advocates, if you all are not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit advocacy organization that looks at really systems change for kids and families. And how we do that is through a number of different ways, but we work with the legislators, the governor's office, other elected officials to enact policies, change policies, ensure that policies are not harming kids and families inadvertently. And we do that by ensuring that they are equipped with the knowledge of the most recent data and research that we have on hand, and basically what is best practice for kids and families, as well as making sure that the voices of kids and families are at the table as those decisions are being made. We do a lot of mobilizing of advocates by creating opportunities to build advocacy skills and make sure that folks know who their legislators are, make sure folks who know where to go if they're seeing an issue within the system. We also are home to the Kids Count County data book, where Kentucky Youth Advocates puts out every year our Kids Count book that creates county profiles for all 120 Kentucky counties, and then also has a kind of a deeper dive on some of the topics within the data. We also have, as Tatum had talked about, we have groups of young people who are advocating on their own behalf, whether it's because they have foster care experience, juvenile justice experience, or they are just interested in advocacy as a high schooler. So that's KYA in a nutshell. We've been around for over 40 years, and we try to remain as independent as possible. We consider ourselves the independent voice for Kentucky's children, and we do that by not taking any state funding, as well as being multi-sector, so focusing on not just one issue area, but multiple issue areas. So Kentucky Youth Advocates is home to several different initiatives, and one of those is the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children. And what the Blueprint is we get together over 100 organizations, it's nonprofits, state agencies, universities, and we come together and put an agenda for kids every year for the legislative session together collaboratively. And we do that every year because legislators told us that they kept getting requests from different groups all of the time, and they couldn't keep everything straight as far as like, what are the things that we need to focus on for this legislative session? So our effort to kind of create some structure and consistency around that and make sure everyone is on the same page is within that blueprint for Kentucky's children. And we focus on those three pillars of creating strong families, building successful kids, and ensuring that they all live in thriving communities. So, like I said, every year we put together an agenda for the legislative session. And this year's agenda was focused on several different items. And I want to talk through what we saw happen that was really positive this year and where we started to see some real progress for Kentucky kids and families. So the first one is we know that education, K-12 education is struggling to retain quality teachers. And House Bill 377 created the opportunity to pay student teachers for the first time ever, and allows for those student teachers to receive stipends and then eventually apply for student loan forgiveness through a program that House Bill 377 created. It's a really exciting, innovative opportunity that other states have tried, and it helps to retain teachers in the classrooms where we need them so that their experience continues and they can continue to teach students in a meaningful and quality way. Another bill that we worked successfully and advocated for was House Bill 561. That was Representative Samara Heverin's bill. And basically what that does is it allows for communities to re-examining their zoning so that they can be more childcare friendly. We know that childcare across the state has become a real struggle. Parents need quality childcare to get to work, and kids need quality childcare in order to get their social emotional learning, those non-cognitive and cognitive learning opportunities, as well as a safe place to stay while their families are working or in school. Senate Bill 151, this was a bill that did two things. One, it allowed for young people to have a voice in their placement if they had to be removed from their home of origin. It allows for them to name the relative or fictive kin caregiver that they would like to be placed to. That was previously a pretty common practice for Department for Community-Based Services, but this puts it in statute and requires it, which is good. Because over time things change and we want to make sure that that stays consistent. The other part of Senate Bill 151 was creating an opportunity for relative caregivers who take who are open to taking their relative or fictive kin children because of abuse or neglect. It would allow for them to have up to 120 days to decide if they wanted to take custody directly or if they wanted to become foster parents. Currently, this bill is not being implemented. There has been some disagreement between the cabinet and legislature due to funding mostly. It's a budget disagreement. It's not a disagreement around the content of the bill. So this one's kind of in flux, but we hope that they can figure it out and move forward on it. House Bill 3 creates some opportunities around training and education and creating a task force around human trafficking. House Bill 179 supports families' access to paid family leave. This allows for insurance companies to offer paid family leave as a rider on their insurance. And then House Bill 470 or House Bill 436 improves the representation of children. That allows for children to get access to legal representation when they are part of intimate partner violence petitions. Previously, they were allowed to get access to an attorney, but this allows for the attorney to get paid so that they can actually get an attorney. And lastly, Senate Bill 145, that allows for healthcare, anyone who takes Medicaid to do a child abuse and neglect registry check as they're going through the hiring process to just do a more complete and comprehensive background check for potential employees as they bring folks on. We also spent a lot of time this session during Frankfurt, ensuring that bad bills were not getting passed. There were some bills that were filed related to reducing access to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or SNAP benefits. We spent a lot of time helping to educate on why that could be very harmful, not just for kids, but for families, for kinship caregivers, for veterans. There was a lot of people who could have been pretty heavily impacted, and we worked hard to ensure that that did not pass. So those are kind of the 2024 state policy priority wins. I might wait to take questions towards the end, if that's okay with folks, and we can go through some of the things that we did not see happen during the 2024 session. So while there were substantial investments in childcare, we still are not seeing the investments that we need in order to carry over what was implemented during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, we got federal dollars through the American Rescue Plan Act, and that really created some opportunities to expand access to quality childcare through the Child Care Assistance Program, as well as providing subsidies for childcare providers. Not all of the funding was met in order to cover that, so we anticipate potentially up to 16,000 children not having access to the Child Care Assistance Program as the state begins to pull back some of that programming because of a lack of funding. We did see some movement around vaping and nicotine and tobacco cessation, but we did not see enough done around youth access to tobacco and nicotine. We would like to see some more restrictions put on businesses to ensure that they are not selling these products to young people, because young people are walking into stores every day and buying products, nicotine products that they really legally are not allowed to buy because they're not over the age of 21. We would like to see some more parameters placed around that. And then related to freestanding birth centers, we hope to see some movement along that, but we know that freestanding birth centers create some opportunities for families to get a more holistic birth experience, as well as address some of the maternal health issues that we're seeing crop up in Kentucky. We have pretty poor maternal health outcomes right now, where we're seeing fatalities or severe anxiety and depression postpartum. So freestanding birth centers would allow for more access to that. We hope to see that happen in the coming years. There were some issues around housing and evictions that did not get addressed in the way that we were hoping them to. An issue related to doing appropriate, ensuring appropriate procedures if a child is being groomed or experiencing some sort of misconduct in schools. House Bill 275 would have helped reduce the risk of that and ensure that schools are not just kind of putting things under the rug by disallowing non-disclosure agreements. And then finally, sexual extortion, creating that as a felony, and then also creating some education and training in that space. Those are missed opportunities. Those are things that we think we will continue to work on in the upcoming sessions. We'll also talk about some other areas that folks may be interested in. But those are the things that we saw that did not happen this session, where there's a real potential for those things to happen. So Tatum is going to talk through some of the opportunities and experience of our young people during this legislative session.
Sorry. Thank you, Shannon. So one of our big events that we have every January is Children's Advocacy Day, or CAD, and we host a retreat for our young adults to come and learn about the legislative session and about how they can be active in it, especially when it comes to being prepared to speak with legislators when given the opportunity. This past year was really, really great. It was my first year being able to attend, and I got to see the young adults just get a passion for this part of advocacy. And it was really inspiring because a lot of them just didn't know a lot about the legislative session, didn't know that they could speak to legislators. And so giving them the tools and the resources to be able to do that was really great, watching them kind of fill in their own shoes and be able to take back their voices. And so one of a few things that we always remind everyone about is that anybody can be an advocate. just speaking up about your experience, about even if it's not an experience, even if it's something that you see that could be changed, speaking up about that, connecting with other people, learning about it, making those connections with other people and being able to meet the needs of children and families in Kentucky. That's what being an advocate is about. And being able to encourage these young adults to take back their voice and to use it, I think is one of the best things that we do.
And Tatum did an incredible job this legislative session, facilitating a panel with a legislator and also just engaging a lot of young people in the process of helping to build their voices. So we're so grateful that Tatum is so committed to ensuring that young people with foster care experience get a voice, and also just being part of our team and sharing her experience has been eye-opening, I think, for a lot of our legislators who don't necessarily know what foster care experience can look like. Thanks, Tatum. All right, so just looking ahead on what we anticipate in the coming months and years, addressing especially within the child welfare and juvenile justice systems, and other systems that support youth and young adults. We will continue to support kinship families and work towards kinship families. In Kentucky, we have all sorts of kinship families. We have families who come together and relatives who raise their kiddos because there's a deployment, because there's a death in the family, because of a family or a birth parent who may be struggling with substance abuse or mental health issues and identified that they need their child to be in a different place. So there's a lot of those informal settings where relatives will just step up. There's no child protective services involvement, and they will jump in and help support and raise that child or children. Other types of kinship families look different because of the Department for Community-Based Services involvement, or sometimes juvenile justice involvement, depending. And we want to make sure that regardless of the reason why a child is living with a relative, that they have the supports they need in order to be successful, and that child can thrive in that setting. I know that Tatum has definitely had some experience in talking to young people with child welfare experience with their psychotropic medication and just medication and prescriptions that are often overused or kind of unmonitored. Tatum, I don't know if you have any specific or direct examples that you wanted to jump in with, but we know that our young people have talked about that they would go to residential or go to a different location and be put on sometimes 4, 5, and 6 different types of medications, and that can create a lot of physical and emotional changes that they don't expect.
Yeah, you're completely right. A lot of the time, young adults are taken, especially within residentials, and we're given just pill after pill after pill as a band-aid solution that doesn't really help, because in the end, it's all trial and basis with medications. And since you're never in a residential for long enough, you just get stuck with the first one or the second one that they try. And so when you do either, reunify with your family, or in my experience going to foster care, your foster parents have to give you this medication legally, because that's what they're there for. And even though they can see that it's hurting you, and you can say that it's doing really bad things, there's not a lot that they can do to get you off of it, because at the end of the day, they don't have the same voice as, I don't know how to put it, as like natural born parents. They don't get the same ability to speak for their foster kids. And so a lot of us are kept on these medications that we don't need, and that cause even more imbalances, and it feels like we're lost.
Yeah. Thanks, Tatum. It can be really hard to advocate as a foster parent or kinship caregiver or even birth parent around like what your child needs and doesn't need, especially if you're not a medical provider. We will continue to work on addressing housing issues. We know that across the state, in every quarter of the state, we do not have enough housing units. There are not enough homes on any level, whether it's like homes for executives or apartments for like first time apartment dwellers. So we don't have enough units across the state of Kentucky. We know that that has created issues with houselessness or substandard housing. We want to make sure that children are not experiencing housing issues that then result in them experiencing other potential harm. And then we will continue to work on the tobacco compliance issue and ensuring that businesses that are selling tobacco and nicotine products are required to comply with the federal laws and state laws and ensure that they are not selling to young people and young people are not getting their hands on vapes. And then dealing with the realities of addiction that they often don't even recognize that they're going to end up having to cope with because it's something that they're trying with their peers or trying with friends and don't necessarily understand that like once you get addicted to nicotine, it can be very difficult to no longer use it. So those are some areas that we're looking at in the 2025 legislative session and probably beyond. Some priorities take a couple of years, sometimes priorities take 7 years, sometimes they take 1 year. It just really depends on what the legislature is interested and has the space to prioritize. So as an advocate, or if you are interested in advocacy, we've got a couple of different options in order to think about what you could get involved in. One is we've got some session recap blogs and podcasts related to what happened in the 2024 session. If you're curious about some of the things that we talked about at the beginning related to wins or missed opportunities, those will be there. We have a national data book for Kids Count to check out the latest Kentucky data, as well as it compared to other states across the nation. And then we talk about this every time we meet with any potential advocates during the interim, which is this time frame right now between the regular legislative session. Typically it starts in June and goes through December. Now is the time to meet with your state House and Senate members. It is the time to get to know them. It's the time to talk to them about the issues that you're concerned about. It is the time to help them understand what you're seeing in your neighborhood or your community or their district so that they know what's going on and what they need to take to the legislative session. Once session starts, it can be too late in the process for them to make any real meaningful changes because it just takes time to prepare and understand on the issue. Also, think about those groups of youth you'd like to engage in Children's Advocacy Day at the Capitol this year. Usually it's in January or February. This year, Children's Advocacy Day will be March 5th. That's going to be much later in the process, but we're really looking forward to having several youth groups. Tatum has experience taking young people. She can talk about what that looks like additionally if you have questions about that. But if you are interested in taking a group of young people, please let us know. Contact Jamie Garth or contact Tatum or I, and we would be happy to get you engaged in that. Some other opportunities is we have Advocacy 101 and data trainings. If you would like to do that with a board, a group, a nonprofit that you work with, a community group that you work with, if you have folks who are interested in really diving into how to be an advocate or what the data says about kids and families in Kentucky, we are here to provide that and offer that to you all. And then as always, you can become a Blueprint partner within your organization. These are some things I had mentioned and some things to keep in mind as far as important dates. Upcoming in September, we will be hosting a Blueprint Lunch and Learn in order to strengthen your electoral advocacy. That creates some opportunities for you to get with other advocates and troubleshoot and also talk through some priorities that you want to see upcoming during this next legislative session. The November 13th is the release of the 2024 Kids Count County Data Book. We do that every year. We've been doing that for the last 30 years. If you want county level data, that is the place to get it. And then in early December, we will be bringing everyone together across the state in order to be part of the Blueprint Summit. And like I said, Children's Advocacy Day is March 5th. We'll also be having a lot of other opportunities that week to talk to legislators, to talk to lobbyists, to talk to other advocates, and really get activated around different priorities. So I don't know if folks have questions, comments, thoughts.
All right, I'm just gonna open up the floor for you guys if you have any questions for Shannon and Tatum.
Or if you would like to talk about your own experience advocating, I always like to learn from other folks on like what they've been able to do or get done.
Donnie, I saw that you came off mute. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could get those emailed out to us so we could share with our REAC. I think it's an excellent presentation, by the way, both of you. So I just wanted to share with our REAC if we could get those. I know they'll probably be on the series that Vanessa puts up on YouTube, but on REAC pretty soon, so it's not too much trouble.
We're happy to send like a PDF of the slides so that you just have easy access to those. We can also drop in some links to some of those upcoming opportunities as well.
That'd be great. Hey, I promise, I'm not sitting in I'm kind of sitting in the dark, but I have two light bulbs blown here in my office. I got a lamp here that's not doing any good, so I apologize.